Hi, this is Rodel Tino, an HP 244 student, and this is the Learning Contract. Learners learn differently from one another. Some learn faster, some slower. Some learn more by reading. Others learn better by viewing films, watching television, listening to a recording, or working on a computer. Many educators are facilitating learning through the use of the individualized learning contract approach. Essentially, this technique encourages learners to take responsibility for their own learning and to become self-directed learners. A personal learning contract will allow you to clearly develop an understanding of what you want to learn, specific learning objectives, how you will accomplish your learning objectives, and what you will produce as evidence of accomplishment. Now at the end of this tutorial, viewers should be able to explain what a learning contract is, identify the content of a learning contract, describe the roles and responsibilities of the teacher and of the student, and explain the advantages and the disadvantages of a learning contract. The learning contract is a form of an individualized learning strategy. This is an approach wherein the student enters into an agreement with the teacher to achieve specified objectives in a way acceptable to both. The teacher may suggest appropriate resources or learning activities, or this responsibility is given to the student. The credit to be given the student is also an agreement between the two. What is individualized learning? The term individualized generally refers to consideration of or accounting for individual differences. Thus, we think of individualized learning approach as one that provides for or adapts to individual differences in learners. Individuals learn in different ways and at different rates. Some learn best when reading or studying alone. Some need an interchange of ideas with others. Others prefer to listen to an authoritative figure. We know that there are fast learners and slow learners. Learning, then, is seen as a fundamentally personal process, the achievement of which depends essentially on the learner's activity. Individualized learning approach, then, is an approach which seeks to adapt to variation in the learner's ability, interest, and learning style, and to increase learner direction and control. By learning individually, guided by the contract, learners develop interest and pride in their accomplishments, and their frustrations and anxieties are eliminated because the contracts provide them with the following: an exact list of items that they must learn, an exact method for showing the teacher that they have mastered the required learning, a clear indication of how well they must do before they are permitted to end one contract and begin another, a choice of many media learning resources. Examples would be tapes, records, films, books, pictures, single concept loops, games, slides, etc., which is suited to their level. A choice of many activities through which information can be used and reinforced so that it becomes knowledge, and the choice of many ways in which they may share what they have learned with others. Now let us look at an example of a learning contract. First blank would be the learner or the student's name, the learning experience, which is the topic. First question would be, what are you going to learn? These would be your objectives. Itemize what you want to be able to do or know when completed. This would be your goals. How are you going to learn it? Which is the resources and strategies. What do you have to do in order to meet each of the objectives defined? This would be the necessary steps to be accomplished in reaching your objectives. Examples would be reading a journal, or watching an online tutorial, etc. Target date for completion. When do you plan to complete each task? You should be realistic and see to it that it is attainable. How are you going to know that you learned it? Or the evidence. What is the specific task that you are to complete to demonstrate learning? This would include reflections or research papers, or anything that would provide evidence. How are you going to prove that you learned it? This would be the verification. Who will receive the product of your learning and how will they evaluate it? Well, this includes critiquing of your presentation. A rubric may be used, etc. Advising faculty member feedback or the evaluation. How well was the task completed? Provide an assessment decision. So this portion will determine whether the objective has been met or not. If not met, feedback should be provided. Now let's take a look at a sample completed learning contract. What are you going to learn? To gain a better understanding of the differences between andragogical and pedagogical concepts. How are you going to learn it? Locate and read as many of the reference articles from Unit 1 as available with a minimum of 10 separate references. Emphasis will be on the information regarding the differences between youth and adult educational concepts. Target date of completion, let's say October 17th. How are you going to know that you learned it? A 10 to 15 page research paper on the differences between youth and adult education will be written. How are you going to prove that you learned it? The paper will be critiqued for comprehensiveness and usefulness by the advising faculty member. An annotated bibliography of the reference material will be submitted with the paper. Advising faculty feedback. Specific feedback appears on the research paper. Marker decides that it was well done, with some more elaboration needed in the area of andragogical concepts. Objective complete, satisfactory. Now, since the learning contract is an agreement between the teacher and the student, let me just give you the responsibilities of each. Responsibilities for the learning contract. For the student, propose a written learning contract of what you want to learn and how you plan to learn it. Develop a detailed schedule that has you working on contract activities each week. Take the initiative to contact your advising faculty member immediately to get the assistance you need, whether be it motivation, resources, feedbacks, or problems. Meet with your advising faculty member regularly to review progress and discuss material learned. And for the advising faculty member, assist in developing learning contract and ensure its completion and good quality. Recommend learning resources such as books, journals, people, agencies, library materials. Be available as a resource for information, but allow students to take initiative in asking for assistance with learning. Meet regularly with the student to review progress, share ideas, and encourage learning. Evaluate the student's work as described in the learning contract. Now, is the learning contract appropriate to your students? Let me just give you the pros and cons of this strategy. Benefits would include require students to be intimately involved in the process of developing their unit of study, require students to explore their readiness to learn and their self-directed learning skills. This maximizes students' motivation to learn because they have chosen the agenda. It may include a schedule of regular meetings with the advising faculty member, encourages independence of students, less demands made on advising faculty members' time, provides a formal way to structure learning goals and activities, as well as evaluation of learning goals. This helps to minimize misunderstandings and poorly communicated expectations. And lastly, this enables advising faculty member to encourage use of variety of resources, such as peers, library, community, and experiences. So what are the limitations of a learning contract? This may be challenging to create for students who are used to a lecture or exam type of courses. This is not suitable for content with which student is totally unfamiliar with. Some initial guidance may be required. May require modification as the unit progresses. Careful thought is needed of how much modification is acceptable, and this could be defined at the outset of each unit. And lastly, this requires that faculty members redefine their traditional roles and make the transition from teacher to advisor. In summary, there are many individualized learning approaches offered, one of which is the learning contract. As an adult learner, we control what motivates us and accept what is deemed necessary. An advantage of the learning contract is that the student and the teacher meet halfway, whether be it goals, resources, or other peers. Baseline is know your students and develop an appropriate plan to provide a teaching-learning continuum. Let me end this tutorial with a quote by Robert Frost. "I am not a teacher, but an awakener." Thank you.